8. Nice. All right, we are live.
Very good. All right. Well, hopefully we're coming through here, but this is the Direct Consumer 301, measuring the success of your direct consumer channels. Is it worth it? So if you're joining us today, this is the third in a 3-part series where we have explored direct consumer. And I am John Kelly. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Craftpeak, and we're joined here with Jeremy King, co-founder and chief solution architect for CraftedERP. Just give you a little background on Craftpeak. We are an Asheville-based technology company. We have built Craftpeak to align ourselves with breweries and great beverage companies, really focused on understanding what the biggest challenges are in your world and then developing solutions to kind of meet those challenges. We work with about 100 breweries, or about 130 breweries across the US and UK and a few in Australia. And yeah, excited to kind of get through this final presentation here. I'll introduce Jeremy here and let him introduce CraftedERP, and then we'll kind of jump into a recap and get straight to today's session.
Thanks, John. Yeah, CraftedERP is really the premier solution in the industry for basically everything that a brewery does. So it is a true all-in-one ERP platform, combining everything with planning, production, packaging, sales, compliance, lab QC, all of the accounting, everything happening out of one single system. So we've got really specialized in craft beverage manufacturing. We've got 3 main editions of it: our brewery edition, our winery edition, and our distillery edition. Of course, all of them can be operated at the same time, which is one of the unique things about us in the marketplace. But it's a great, phenomenal, entirely cloud-based system that really presents and gives users a single version of the truth. No ancillary systems. I mean, it's not like we've got to tie in with QuickBooks or anything else. And a lot of the stuff that you're going to see here today would just be impossible with trying to use some kind of lesser accounting system. But really happy to be able to share some of the things that we're going to kind of talk about today. And a lot of this comes directly from our customers' information. So what we're going to share is been homogenized and kind of cleansed, but it's going to be real life information that hopefully you can use to make better decisions for your brewery.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Jeremy, I think at this point we'll do a quick recap, and then I'll kind of set some expectations around what we're going to cover today. So in sessions 1 and 2, just to recap, first of all, I think in session 1, we really wanted to be able to kind of share with everybody the opportunity that exists with direct to consumer and e-commerce sales. Really, we're talking about online sales related to beer sales for breweries. And what we have been able to explore is that it's here to stay. A lot of breweries are moving in that direction, and for good reason. It's an opportunity to kind of differentiate yourself from other breweries in terms of the direct consumer experience. It's a durable channel, and it's diversified from your tap room. So all things that provide a benefit, especially in light of tap rooms closing like we've all experienced this year. The second thing is that customer expectations are shifting. There's a lot of indicators in the market on the way we buy things and the way that we receive those items. And really, it's direct consumer and e-commerce are a way to kind of meet the demands and those shifting customer expectations. The third thing, and this is really the focus of yesterday, is Jeremy and his team have put together a lot of numbers related to the cost associated with brewing beer and packaging beer. And not all packaging formats look the same, as you guys know, but also fulfillment options also look different. So what we're going to do today is really now explore the variety of sales options that you have, whether you're selling through your tap room, whether you're selling online and fulfilling with curbside pickup, delivery, shipping. We'll take a look at all of those numbers so that you guys have some very clear metrics and benchmarks to kind of base your business off of. So we did, the gross margin yesterday. Today we'll get to the net profit margin, and I think this last one is probably just reinforcing that the data is really important. Just because you're participating in a channel, we want to make sure that we're paying attention to the margins in those channels. We know the true cost, both in the production and packaging of that beer, but also in terms of the sales channel. So, and that includes the staff that you need to fulfill these orders, and the various methods and costs associated with kind of selling and taking the beer to market. Okay, I will throw out a little disclaimer here that we are going to be getting into some numbers. I promise that we'll call this a little bit of a nerd alert. but I think we need to be, I just want to set expectations that a lot of it is going to be numbers driven today. And we did that intentionally. We think that there's an opportunity to kind of share these numbers that are going to benefit a lot of folks out there. And we would love to hear from you. So as we're going through some of these numbers, if you have specific questions, we want to keep this session very interactive. It's the third session, and we're kind of pulling everything together. So we expect that there might be some questions as we're going through this, but certainly there'll be some numbers. We're going to make them easy for everybody to digest, but just wanted to put a little warning out there, disclaimer that we're going to go deep.
No doubt. And just to piggyback on that, John, I mean, this really is. I mean, a lot of this came from information that we were able to go in and mine out of CraftedERP. There's a fair amount of data that we also were able to get out of Craftpeak, as well as some of the specific kind of order averages and stuff. And again, just remind you, this is based on averages. The model is sound, but I mean, you might be higher, might be lower on sales price depending on what you're doing. Just just want to make sure that everybody doesn't look at something and say, oh, that's way too low, way too high. This is just, again, based on all the averages that we were able to pull out here. So with that being said, really, when it comes to DTC, there's four main channels of getting your beer directly to your consumer. The tried and true is the old tap room, having people saddle up to the bar, pouring in pints, and certainly becoming much more popular these days as a result of a lot of tap rooms being shut down, is the curbside pickup. So we're going to go into all of the details in terms of what that actually is. Third is delivery. This is where we're sending either our guys or some kind of third-party service, kind of same-day type of service. And the fourth is ship. Ship is going to allow us. This is going to be utilizing one of these actual delivery direct to home, but it's much more of an overnight type of function. And we'll talk through the various costs and everything associated with that particular method. So let's just start with the the tap room, jumping right in. And so we want to talk a little bit about the assumptions that we're utilizing. So in our fictitious tap room here, we've got a place that opens for an average of 6 hours a day. And a lot of times, it's, Friday through Sunday is a little bit longer than maybe the Monday through Thursday, but we're just using averages here of 6 hours a day, and we're open 7 days a week. And over there on the right, we've got basically our breakdown of how we're going to allocate some of these overheads that we really want to bake into the cost of our pints. So we're here again, and we work a little bit of the larger side of breweries. So if some of these numbers seem a little bit high, I think that's fine. It all gets washed out in the end anyway, just with the units that get pushed through. But we're assuming rent of $50,000, $15,000 a month in utilities, $5,000, in repairs, et cetera, down to depreciation. Now, only if we're taking a portion of that, so that would represent the entire facility that we're talking about here. But there's only a portion of that we really want to be kind of allocated over to the front of the house. So in this particular example, we're taking 25% of that rent, or $12,500 a month is going to be that's going to be overhead that's going to be associated with our tap room or tasting room. 25% of the utilities, that's pretty much a one-for-one is what we typically see. Repairs is going to be a little bit less because most of the repairs that we're going to have is probably going to be on our production equipment, et cetera. So we're taking a smaller amount of that. 25% of the insurance, there's probably a lot more. I mean, it could even be more. I mean, it's, when you've got people coming in, but generally we see our customers just doing about the same split as they are with their rent and utilities. And then 5% of the depreciation. So there's going to be some depreciation that we have on kind of furnitures, fixtures, et cetera, but it's going to be a lot lower percentage than the kind of the big bang buck stuff of fermenters, brew house, stuff like that. We're going to see a vast majority of the depreciation actually be associated with the actual cost of the beer, and then the cost of our packaging equipment and other things. So we're actually capturing that at 3 different levels here, by the time we get to this point. So that's a total of a little over 18,000, and then we're coming up with an hours per month. And again, this is that. Based on these overhead assumptions we've got over on the left there to get us 183 hours. So effectively, it's about $100 per hour is what we're going to be allocating into the whatever we're producing out of the tasting room. So utilizing those assumptions here, and then we've got cost of keg beer. This is coming from the previous presentations that we did, we've got a little bit lower labor rate here than we did over on the production and packaging side. The reason is here, a lot of our labor is also supplemented, and we've got the additional tips that are being paid to them. So what we've seen in the data is that the rates that the breweries are actually paying is somewhat lower than what we'd be seeing on the production side, just because of those tips. Now we've got our overhead rate of the $99 an hour. That's what we just established on the previous slide. And what we're assuming here is that for every pint that gets poured here, it takes 3 minutes of labor. It's not just the physical pouring of it. There's the checkout, labor associated with it. Somebody's got to bust the tables. Somebody's got to load the dishwasher. Somebody's got to unload the dishwasher. So we tried to bring all of that in and just say for every pint that's poured, it's going to take somebody. It's not just one person, but for everybody about 3 minutes worth of time. And that's going to flow into some of the other stuff that we've got down here as well. So again, we've got our hours per day. We've got number of pints poured per minute. It's going to give us like a 2 pint per minute average. And again, this is the course of all 6 hours. I know there's busy times, there's slow times. We're basing this all on averages here. But at 6 hours a day, that's 120 pints per hour, 720 pints per day, 262.8 pints per year, which is the equivalent of about a little over 1,000 barrels. So that's our kind of makeup for the analysis that we're going to utilize, for this here. So that all of those times, that equates to 7.5 full-time equivalents. Now, again, you might have 15 people that are working, 20 hours a week. This is assuming, full-time equivalents, or somebody that's working 40 hours a week, but that's what would be having here, which gives us an average taproom labor. And this is what is the cost of the brewery at about $263,000, and taproom overhead then is going to be about $217,000 per year. Final assumption is we're basing this on a 3% transaction fees, usually taken through your POS system, and the charge for your credit card processing. So with all of that, it basically runs through that for every pint that we're selling here, we've got about, even though the beer has cost us only 66 cents on average, and that's based on the 163.70 cost per barrel that we proved out last time. But a pint of beer sold through our tasting room, when you take in those delivery costs, which is the draft labor, draft overhead, and the transaction fees, is $264, which gives us a cost per barrel, fully inclusive of everything, at about $204.54. And we'll see how all of this lays out in terms of individual margins in just a second. But those are the baseline numbers, what we're going for.
Yeah, and Jeremy, I was going to jump in there just to make a comment to everybody. It's probably obvious to the audience here, but one of the things that we were really excited to do was, number one, show you how we got to all of these numbers and show you the assumptions that we're using to make this. As we said, we're trying to make this representative of kind of an average brewery around 1,000 barrels of production. But these numbers are going to be different for you in your tasting room, but you can use the same analysis that we're doing here, but adjusting those assumptions to kind of fit your brewery specifically. So not only are we going to go through this analysis, but this is also a tool that you could use when you're kind of turning the lens on yourself and looking at your own brewery. If you go through this analysis of assumptions and get them dialed in for your brewery, you'll be able to do the same calculations that we're doing here today.
All right. Jumping through into our next kind of delivery model, which is our direct-to-consumer, and this is one that I've laid out for kind of all of our direct-to-consumer. And really, what I'm talking about here is delivery, shipping, as well as curbside pickup. And so we've got a little bit slight different assumptions on this one. This one assumes that those particular functions we're only going to operate 8 hours a day for 5 hours a week. Typically, we're not going to be doing this at the same time that we're running full steam on our when the tasting room's open. So we got a little bit slight hours that we're operating here. The monthly numbers are the same, but our allocation percentages are going to be slightly different. So here, we think it's going to utilize less actual space, which means we're going to need less rent, less utilities, less insurance across the board for all of these. So we've moved that down from that 25% down to a 10% allocation amount. And then we don't really have any real depreciation. There's no real equipment, machinery, or anything. So we've just excluded that entirely, which means that on a monthly basis to operate all of this, it's only about $6,800, of what we would actually associate with our DTC operations here. And then our hours are slightly different. Again, based on 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's 173 hours a month. So we're getting a lower allocation amount here, $39.23. When we take that $39.23 and apply it into our overall model, and you can see in a couple other assumptions that we made, and this is based off some information that we are able to get out of Craftpeak, but the average order size is about 3 16-ounce 4-packs of what's flowing through that. So that's about a half a case of beer for every order here. Again, we've got our cost of beer. Again, this is the $2.95, so this is the cost of our canned beer with the additional cost of what it takes for the additional packaging materials, labor, and overhead of actually getting that beer into a can. That we shared on yesterday's presentation. So we're using that exact same number of the $2.95.98. Again, a little bit lower labor rate here. We're assuming this is going to be the same people that are eventually working in the tasting room and getting those tips. So we're going to just say, hey, this is all kind of front of the house in terms of how this is operating. Applying that slightly lower, it's less than half, overhead rate that we just saw on the previous slide. And then we've got a couple other assumptions here. So one is, and this is based on information that John was able to provide, but standard packing material here. So this is going to be your U-line, your kind of just standard shipping box. Just about everybody, if you're going to be doing this, you're going to have some kind of packaging material. It might be some kind of, if it's delivery, you might be putting something in some kind of box, some kind of branded bag, something that's going to be more survivable when we're actually taking that beer and having it removed from the brewery. So we're saying at the very least we're going to have about $150 per order of the standard packing material. Now, one of the questions that came up yesterday is, what about these more expensive things with cold packs and really dedicated, beer shipping containers? That's what we're assuming here is that there's an additional $1.50 if we're going to kind of upgrade to those. So not every order necessarily is going to have that. You can see it in the model that we've actually got that included here, but that's what we consider premium packing material. So for stuff that's being shipped out with cold packs, we're going to assume, based on what we've seen here, it's really $3 in terms of all of the packing material in total to be able to ship that half case of beer. In terms of labor and overhead, we're assuming it takes 3 minutes on average to go and pick that beer. So an order comes in, somebody's got to go and grab those particular 4-packs, whatever the case might be. Collect those, go and bring them over to another station where somebody's going to go and actually pack those. Again, we're assuming that's a 3-minute duration. For somebody to go get the packing material out, box everything up, bag everything up, whatever the case might be, and then get it staged in a place where it's either going to be picked up or where UPS can come and pick the stuff up and get it delivered. Okay. Now, on top of that, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, in terms of packaging materials, guys, I think we've added a little bit of a qualifier in here for premium packaging materials. Those can go up significantly from there. There's some packaging solutions out there that might be closer to kind of $1 per beer. So if you're going to ship a case cold pack, you might be looking at $24, $25 for packaging. So we know that we can't account for everything here, but just wanted to say we're adding some qualifier to that premium, but certainly there are solutions out there, or packaging solutions out there that are far more expensive, that are kind of more specialized around those cold packs.
Yeah, absolutely. And the final assumption is this one has a 5% of sales, because this is typically you're going to have the same like credit card processing charges on that. There is also typically a fee, by your DTC software for actually processing that order. Moving over to the right, then this is the way that model particularly shakes out. Excuse me here a second. Just give me a second here, guys. Migraine headache just kicked in.
Oh no.
Well, John, if you want to just take over and talk over this slide here, just as.
Yeah, be happy to. And I think we are probably almost finished with this one here. So yeah, the transaction fee, once again, we're kind of figuring that, if you have, whether you have like a real world point of sale system, it's probably going to be about a 3%. And that might be a little bit on the heavy side, but once again, trying to be a little bit conservative here to cover everybody. But figure 3% on the point of sale side, and right now we're kind of factoring 2% on the e-commerce side. So we think that's probably middle of the road, maybe a little bit conservative on both of those.
Yeah, and here the highlights of this is $38.87 is our actual cost. For if we were to go out and actually ship this. I guess I didn't put this in here as one of our assumptions, but basically what we've seen is kind of the average in terms of a shipping cost is about $25 per case. So in this particular case, if we're shipping a half a case of beer, that's a cost that we're incurring. Whether or not we pass that charge on to the customer or not, is something for you guys all to decide. But you can see here in terms of its of the 38.87 in terms of our total cost of delivery on here, 12.50 of that is a huge percentage. 12.50 of that is related to the shipping, and you can see what that actually equates to. It's $258 per barrel to utilize this kind of delivery method of actually shipping the beer out to your customers, which gives us a cost per barrel in total of 803.
Yep.
All right. So speaking of those shipping charges now, we've got basically 4 different lines here, and what we're doing is we're seeing over here on the left-hand side, we're seeing our expected margins. This is net of all of our delivery costs, and down below on the bottom there, we're looking at our price per case that we'd be selling beer on average. And then we've got 4 different lines, and so the darkest blue line there is if we charged the customer $0 for shipping. The yellow line is if we charged, or the light blue line is if we charge 5. The yellow line is if we charge the customer 10. And remember, this model is $12.50 is what our cost is. The next one is 15. So that's when we're actually charging the customer more. If it's 5, that's where we'd be somewhat subsidized. We're still paying $12.50. The customer's paying 5. 10, it's still somewhat subsidized because we're paying $12.50 still, and the customer's paying 10. But I think it's really telling here, especially if you look at that blue line, that if you're not charging for shipping, your margins are going to be very, very small. This is where I think it's imperative that you really analyze and make sure you're coming up with a full go-to-market plan in terms of how you're going to be selling your beer at retail price and getting the most that you can, because otherwise those shipping charges are just going to suck all of the profit out of the business.
Yeah, and Jeremy, the other thing that this slide is kind of pointing to me is that the higher per barrel value of the beer, maybe the more that a fulfillment method of shipping makes sense. So as we see kind of the graph climb to the right, where it's like your per barrel, and I believe is that a per barrel charge at the bottom, Jeremy?
This is a per case.
Per case. Okay, so yeah. So your per case costs, as they go up, you can see that it becomes more effective. If you're trying to sell, something at $80 a case and you're not charging for shipping, you're definitely losing money on that. So I think that there are certain brands out there that are selling very high, very high priced beer that shipping makes a lot of sense for. I think, as Jeremy's pointing out, though, that everybody else needs to be critical to the way that they're pricing their beer, the margins associated with it. And I think that's really what we're going to get next is let's look at the margins so you guys can make some strategic decisions for the business.
Yeah, because I think the consumer does that math in their head, and if you're selling the same beer through their tasting room, it's going to be hard to charge that much of a premium over it, and most of the premium is just the additional shipping charges. However, if your tasting room is shut down, or you've got some really specialized beer that you're not going to sell through your tasting room, it's difficult to do that comparison. And I think you've got the ability to sell that at a higher price per case, as well as being able to add on to those shipping charges, move into the upper right-hand quadrant of that particular graph.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Now moving on to the pickup. So same exact assumptions that we had over on the shipping side of the business here. It's still the same amount in terms of order size, costs. The beer is the same. Again, once we get it in cans, it doesn't matter how we sell it. It's going to have the same actual cost of goods sold for it. Same labor, overheads, etc. Here we don't have any of the premium packaging materials. We just don't need it if we're going to be delivering it, effectively immediately. But we're still assuming $1.50 just in terms of, there's probably some kind of co-branded or other materials that we're going to be handing to our, to the individuals as they come and actually pick it up. Same picking duration, same packing duration, same transaction fees. But you can see that we've gone down from the elimination of shipping cost over there on the right-hand side and the elimination of that premium packaging material. That's about the only two changes here, but shipping cost is the big one. And we've gone from over $800 per barrel in terms of our total cost to be able to deliver beer via that method to down to $500. That's a $300 per barrel savings. So yeah, we were at 803 and 38.87. We're down to 24.25 on a per order basis. So significant cost reduction and margin improvement if we can get the people to come to our brewery and pick the beer up. So that's all great and stuff, but what does all that mean? We've got 3 different models that we've compared to. So here we've tried to do a very basic profit and loss statement, and we'll take a look at our tap room first. Again, these are all based on the assumptions we've used throughout the 3-day process here. Assuming we're selling a pint in our tasting room at $5 a pop. We've got no shipping fees associated with it. It's pretty easy to see what our margin is on a per pint and per barrel basis. We know that our cost of our pint, just the beer itself there, is going to be 66 cents. Pretty hefty margins, at 86.8% there. Our cost of sales, this is what we showed just a little bit ago, which is the labor and overhead to deliver that stuff is just about $2 on that. So we've got a net margin, and again, this is not going to include management overhead, marketing, other things. So it's this is really a channel profitability margin here, but a 47%, and that's extremely healthy. So what does that look like for shipping? Well, again, $50 an order. So we can see that our total revenue per barrel is actually higher here, because in this particular model, you can see that we're charging $12.50 for that order for shipping it. The cost, or the revenue per barrel of beer is slightly less. Again, this is kind of that balancing act that you've got to do between, am I charging the customer more for the beer itself, or am I charging them for shipping? Because there is that kind of balancing act that's going on. So our gross margins here are less because the cost of our product is more with the additional packaging materials, labor, and overhead that actually gets it into the can. Then applying that cost of sales, that $24.55, as we just saw, includes that shipping cost and the box, the packing materials, all of that. But 10 points less. Just by going through this particular model. So right out of the gates here, I can see that it's going to be much more profitable in terms of selling through my tasting room than actually shipping beer out to customers. What's that saying, John? But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
The pickup model, and this was, I think, just eye-opening to all of us. I think we all kind of knew it, but this kind of proves it out. So here we're going to have a lot of the same metrics that we are over on the shipping side again. The same price per order, except for we're not charging for shipping here. That's one of the things here. If you'll notice the 77 versus 71.3 gross margins, those really are only different because of the additional shipping fees that we've got in there. You'll notice the cost of goods is still $14.13 or $14.33 for both of them. So that's the only reason we have a true gross margin difference on that. But we've got a 71.3% gross margin, which is not as good as either of the other two. However, our cost of sales, when you go and you just have a couple people going in, and even though we've got the additional cost that's going into the can itself, but we've got just a couple people taking and processing these orders, our cost of sales is only $9.92 per order. Again, that's at 3 minutes for somebody to go pack it, but we don't have the additional shipping, packing material charges included in that, and we don't have the shipping costs. And what that really nets us here is the best net profit margins of them all. So, from me taking a look and just seeing this part of the analysis, and being a numbers guy, that's something that's very interesting to me, especially in a case where I can't have my tried and true tasting room, up and running. This seems like a great alternative.
Yeah, and I think what jumps off the page to me here in just kind of a generality is that, all right, so what is this really saying? Well, obviously, to make beer and to have it in a draft format and to serve in your tap room, it is more affordable on the production side of things. So you have a higher gross margin when it comes to that beer in that format and that quantity. But you have a higher cost of sales, so you have a lower net profit. Whereas it's just the opposite on the pickup side. Because we're putting it in cans and we're going through that additional cost, it means that you've got a lower gross profit, lower gross margin, but because the cost of sales is lower and you can deliver that more efficiently to customers, then it's providing a larger net profit margin. So it's probably obvious to everybody, but wanted to just kind of summarize what I really think is going on here.
All right, this is where we look into our crystal ball and predict the future.
Oh, yes.
Luckily, John and I are good at that.
No
Not
problem.
really, but yeah. I mean, these are kind of our findings in terms of talking all of this stuff over, but I really don't see that shipping beer is going to be a mainstream thing. For some breweries, certainly, but I think for the vast majority, it's just not going to be a solution after COVID. If you can get your tasting room up and running, that's going to be the one, just based on margins alone, that people are going to say, yeah, we're not going to do that. We're going to focus on more profitable lines of delivery. The shipping costs are just too high. Again, I think it's really a niche market for some really high-end producers, because your sales price has to justify this additional cost. So it's got to be something that's really exclusive, something that's hard to get, something that's more in line with the wine model on like a price per ounce. Wine works because they're delivering $30 to $50 bottles of wine, with 12 of them. I mean, so just your cost, or the revenue that you're generating on it is high enough to justify that cost, even if we're passing, if I'm spending over $300, $400 on a case of wine, I might not care about a $20, $30 shipping charge. That might be different if I'm spending $100 on a case of beer. I think the curbside delivery model is here to stay, regardless of what happens with COVID and everything else. I mean, it's just the fact that it's got the highest margins. If something else happens where we are shut down again, I think it's just a business continuity plan that every brewery needs to have in their back pocket and ready to go. Just featuring it right alongside their tasting room is this curbside pickup model. That being said, that means that every single brewery is going to need some kind of DTC platform to be able to go and take and process these orders, have that follow up, make sure that people have marked them and be able to tie that in with all their inventory. But I definitely just don't see that going away.
Yeah, and Jeremy, I'll jump in here on a couple of these. So, guys, as we're making these, as we're doing this analysis, you'll probably notice on the last slide that basically we're talking about taproom sales being about $5 per pint, so $5 per 16 ounce of beer. And on the other channels, we're really talking about a slightly lower price point, basically a 4-pack of 16-ounce cans costing you about right around $16.50. So as we look across all of our customers, we know that we've got 4 packs of 16-ounce cans that are being sold anywhere from $12 to, some are $25, $26, $27. So, once again, if you're one of those breweries that has the ability and brand identity that you're selling your beers at the top end of this market, then there's more opportunity that kind of affords yourself, and you can kind of run through the same process to figure out what the profit margins are. Or if you are using different formats, if you're selling $26 bottles of barrel-aged stout, then there are other opportunities that are available via shipping. So once again, I want to make sure that the assumptions that we're making here are clear as we're kind of summarizing it. But absolutely, the curbside model and delivery model is substantially higher in margins. And if you're a brewery that's looking at all of your sales channels right now, this is a tool for you to be able to start to analyze the cost of sales for all of those channels and make sure that you can kind of pick where you're putting your beer to get the highest margins. Because at the end of the day, the margins are your profit. Profit is cash. Cash goes back into the business, and that's either paying off loans, hiring new people, whatever you guys are looking to kind of make those capital investments back into the business. That's what you're going to be able to do.
All right. Again, further looking into our crystal ball here. The way I see it, I mean, delivery, I think it serves a certain market. I know we didn't have any particular slides on that, but some of the, it's just because the numbers are really all over the place. There wasn't anything that we could really code in on as being kind of a definitive number.
Yeah, they make it tough.
Yeah, no doubt. But for the analysis that we were able to do, really came up to a very similar model that we would seeing over on the shipping side. There's a large delivery cost associated with that, one that really reduces margins down. I think in one of the run-throughs we did, it was actually negative. Because and that certainly doesn't make sense. But I think That being said, it still has a certain place in the marketplace. There's a certain amount of people that don't want to get up and drive to your brewery. They want it now. I mean, we live in a society that we get everything delivered now, and so I think there's going to be a certain amount of demand out there. And if you're a brewery that offers delivery, I think you're going to pick up those sales, because I don't think everybody's going to offer this, long term. I think that in order to actually make this profitable, you have to pass that delivery charge on to the customer. But again, I think this is going to be so specific for a particular customer that they're used to paying those fees anyway. So I think that is the model. And of course, I mean, there's headaches with being able to tie in, if you are using a third-party delivery system, being able to tie in that information into whatever platforms you're running, to mark that things actually got delivered. But there's other headaches and costs that go along with that. But again, I don't think we're going to see every brewery doing this, but I would bet you that's probably 20% or so would offer a delivery model.
Yeah, I'll jump in and I'll say that, yeah, I agree that it's very similar to shipping, where I think the negative models that we were running were related to shipping. Like if the brewery was going to say, hey, it's free shipping, we are just going to incur this cost as a benefit to our customers. Like that's probably not the way to do it. Well, that's the same way with delivery, where if a brewery is trying to offer up free delivery, we used basically saying, hey, there's a 10-mile radius around this brewery. We think that a delivery driver can drop off 3 orders per hour. And let's assume each trip is about 30 miles. And you're paying both for the time for that employee for your staff to basically deliver that, plus a mileage reimbursement if they were going to use their own car. So, a lot of assumptions here, and those all could be, way off from your particular brewery. But when you look at that, basically, if you are if you're offering free delivery, you're down to about a 35% profit margin, net profit margin at that point. If the customer is paying for it and you are using your staff to deliver, you can be up closer to like a 46, 48% profit margin. So once again, has to be passed on to make it kind of compete at the same margin, or compete with tap room and curbside pickup. But once again, that has to be the consumer making that decision. Not all consumers are going to make that choice, just like not all consumers are going to be willing to pay $25 to get $40 worth of beer through the mail. Now, there will be a subset out there. There will be certain breweries that command that. There's going to be excitement for those breweries. But I think the reality is that those are costly initiatives. And then if you're using a third-party delivery system like Postmates, Uber Eats, Grubhub, things like that, the assessment's even a little bit trickier there, because what those third-party delivery systems do is, if you're delivering food, what they typically do is take your menu item, and if it's $39, they're going to bump it up to $47, and then they're going to charge you additional fees on top of that. With something like beer, where the price can't raise in certain states, I think that the brewery is responsible for about 20% of those fees, plus the product fees, plus they're going to be paying additional service fees to delivery transaction fees and delivery service fees. So what we're seeing is that, in a model where you're going to pay for delivery and you're going to have staff deliver, it looks like your break even's probably around $10.80 per order. And once again, it's based off the assumptions that we talked about. So, if you have a flat delivery fee of $10, you're probably going to get pretty close to covering that based on the assumptions that we've made. When you use a third party, however, that number goes up to $18. So significantly more expensive. Once again, maybe the consumer is going to opt into that, and maybe they'll see that as a benefit. But we wanted to try to get to true costs here to give you some idea of what that looks like. So once again, if you do free delivery, you're going to be eating into your margins down to 35%. If you're going to have the customer pay for the delivery, that bumps the margins back up. But certainly, if you use a third party, there's a lot more money that needs to be invested either by the brewery or the customer to kind of fulfill those transactions.
Yeah. And so seeing the different costs of delivery, I want to try to incentivize people to come and doing the one where I'm the highest margin. highest margins are tasting room and curbside pickup. And so I would start thinking about incentives for people to come and actually pick it up. So if you buy the stuff online for curbside pickup, we'll give you a coupon, some kind of certificate or something for a free pint at the tasting room. Yeah. We've all just seen that pint is going to cost you $2.60, where shipping that beer is going to, or sending somebody out is, we're going to be, in excess of $20. It makes a ton of sense. Try to get them there, and then of course you've got all the opportunities to sell them additional things once they're, assuming your tasting room can be open, but you've got all the, the ability to really control the experience, which is a nice tie into my next piece here. The tap room is dead. Long live the tap room. Tap room's never going to go away. I mean, I just don't see it. I think you're going to be having some people that are skittish about going in. It might not be the boom that it once was, but I mean, great high margins, consistent. It's the simplest of all operations. We all know how to run a tasting room. I mean, it's what a lot of us have built, the business on. It's our freshest beer. We've got full control. So again, we just don't see this going away, at least until next time. God forbid we've got another one of these. That's why I think it's critical that we've got some kind of backup plan in place ahead of time to make sure that we just switch over instead of being, it might be 70-30, 70% tasting room, 30% DTC, and we might have to shift over and go 100. But the demand for beer doesn't go away. That's one of the great things that we've seen. In fact, it might have gone up significantly. I know I drank more beer during COVID, as you can probably tell.
Yeah,
John, you want to take this one?
Yeah, be happy to. And maybe one other comment on the last slide as well is, because the way that I look at it is, I think that many of our breweries were so focused on the tap room that there wasn't a lot of thought put into maybe other potential sales channels. But I think this has caused a number of our breweries to kind of take a fresh look at that brewery, their business, and say, all right, how do we want this to operate moving forward? So I would encourage you to take a look at all the sales channels that are available to your business, like not just the ones that I do, not just the ones that Jeremy's involved in, but you should be aware of all the sales channels that might be potentially viable for your business, and do the same analysis that we're doing here. What are the margins associated with each of those channels? What is the true cost related to the sales? And figure out if that's a viable market for you or not. So once again, I think what we're going to see is that breweries are going to become more omni-channel. There's going to be a lot more opportunities to sell your beer in different places. Doesn't necessarily mean that those are all places that you should be selling your beer. So this analysis is how you determine which ones to participate in and which ones to hold back from. And as part of that, what we're going to talk about here are this was something that I did not expect, Jeremy. So I wanted to make a slide. We spent a lot of time going back and forth with calculations here, but this is one that I just feel like, all right, I need every brewery to see this, because it talks about the decisions that we make along the way. And I think that you can have very simple decisions that have a true impact on your bottom line. And what we're demonstrating here is that we've basically done a net profit margin analysis of both sleeved beer and labeled beer. So this is both beer that has been packaged. And in Jeremy's session yesterday, he pointed out that, hey, sleeved beer, we're talking about a beer cost of $295.98 per barrel for sleeved. Well, the cost of a labeled beer would be $235.98. So the only thing that we're changing in these two analyses, you'll notice that all other numbers are the same except for the cost of the packaged beer, whether you made a decision to put it with a sticker label on it or a sleeved can. And just that one decision right there is almost a 5% difference in terms of your net margin. So, if we're talking about 1,000 barrel brewery here, we're talking $1 million a year in total revenue. And if you've got 5% is going to be $50,000 in additional profit. So these are real numbers, and these are what may seem like little decisions at times, that unless you go through this analysis, you're going to see that those little decisions might have a big impact on the bottom line. And this is one that just hit me, the difference between just those either going sleeved or labeled. And that was not something I was expecting. I was expecting that difference would probably be closer to 1 or 2% on the bottom line. When we saw that it was 5%, I was like, well, we gotta make a slide.
Yeah, I think this goes to show, I mean, unless you're involved in distribution and have your beer sitting on a shelf next to somebody else's, it really doesn't make sense to invest in the real fancy looking cans. Now with a blank and a label, or the the low end of the less expensive end of a sleeve can, because there's pros and cons of each one of them. With a labeler, you got to make sure you've got something to be able to affix those, and I think you got a little bit more flexibility in terms of buying cans that are actually sleeve versus some of the minimums that you might have to buy over on the blanks. But I mean, to John's point, I would focus on the solution that's going to work best for you guys. That's the lowest cost, and go with the lowest cost, because if people are buying for curbside pickup or for delivery, they don't care what your can looks like. I mean, they want the beer at that point. They've already picked you. I think they've selected you. They're on your website, and you've got the ability to make that. It really doesn't matter when they open the box if it's the fanciest looking can, at least not to me.
Yeah.
Especially if it's going to cost you $50,000 a year.
Well, I think, Jeremy, that's probably the last slide here, and I think we're right at the 45-minute mark. So it's been a heck of a beginning of this week. I guess this is we're wrapping.
It's only Wednesday. Yeah.
feels like 2 weeks and 3 days. But guys, just to let you know how to get a hold of us. If you have any questions, we would welcome any questions that you've had. We've done 3 series here, really kind of focused on direct to consumer and e-commerce. We hope that these sessions have been helpful in terms of understanding what the opportunity looks like, and the constraints and considerations that you have to kind of put into your decision-making process when you're looking to explore these. And I think, just in summary, e-commerce isn't going anywhere. It's a great solution that is a complement to your tap room, and a very viable solution if those tap rooms get closed. And then from there, it's really critical to know the numbers associated with each format, each packaging type, each fulfillment channel. So, guys, if we can be helpful at all, please reach out to us. You can reach Jeremy at CraftedERP, either through general inquiries at sales@craftederp.com. Specific questions, you've got his email address, so you can spam the heck out of this dude. And then with Craftpeak, throw myself out there as well. But general inquiries, you can always reach us at hello@craftpeak.com. We'll have somebody excited to get back to you. Or if you want to reach out to me directly, it's John at Craftpeak. And yeah, we look forward to seeing how we can help. We're also, I don't know what it looks like from here, but guys, we've put together a number of tools associated with like the analysis here, and we'll be talking about the best way to kind of get those on our website so that they become tools or templates that you can use for your brewery as well. So be looking forward to some information from us, but a lot of the things that went into these presentations we're going to make available to everybody. So check back in with us and be happy to kind of spread the love.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Jeremy, we are 2 minutes over. It's been great participating with CraftedERP, and it has been great participating with you. So I just want to thank you personally, man. It's been a fun week.
Likewise. Until next time, huh?
Until next time, man. We'll go get a beer.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Cheers.